Good evening, everybody.
Later and just
Thank you all for coming along, and we've got a couple of celebrities here tonight. One of them that you all came to see, a chap called Ted, I think his name is. And this man here is almost as famous as Ted, and he's from Scotland. So I'm going to let Andrew do the introductions, and then I will do a few intimations at the end once we've had a bit of a questions and answers session with Ted. I'll hand over to Andrew. Andrew Murray.
So thanks a lot for coming. It's great to see so many folk out and about today, and it's no surprise to see such a huge turnout for the legend that is Ted. I had the opportunity to grab a few minutes with him over a coffee downstairs, and it was solid gold. So great to catch up with Ted. And what a day for it. You know, it's almost the actual weather for wearing sandals. In the dead of winter.
No doubt.
I wouldn't even dream of it in the dead of winter, but now it's coming into summer and I'm going to get myself a pair, no doubt about that. So Colin asked me just to say a wee bit about the expedition that myself and the great Donnie the Wolf Campbell, personal trainer and Footworks, are going in the next 3 days. I know we've had some fantastic support from Colin, from Stephen, from Abdul, from Ross, and from a load of other folk that are here tonight. So I'll just fill you in with what we're up to. Essentially, we want to get a bit faster. We want to have a bit more knowledge. So we're going out there to Africa, to East Africa, to find out a bit about what makes the Kenyans so fast. There's some stats out there that just border on the absurd. Of the world's 100 best marathon runners, 66 of them come from Kenya.
Whoa.
There's one tiny primary school in Iten, a small village in Kenya, that have had 17 world champions.
Whoa.
Okay? So this is, to put in context, the single greatest and most concentrated production line of world-class talent in the world. So we want to see what that's all about. And how
It's the whiskey.
We'll take out a bottle of whiskey, Ted. That's a good idea. So we're going to do that, and then we're also going to test ourselves by running up and down Kilimanjaro in a day, running up and down Mount Kenya, through various rainforests, game reserves, etc, etc. And why we're doing that is to find out a bit, but we're looking to contribute a wee bit as well. And again, it's been fantastic having folk like Colin, Ross, Stephen, and everyone in the shop really helping out. So we're looking to share the love a wee bit. So there's a few things we're doing. We're raising a bit of cash for the African Palliative Care Association, but probably the most exciting thing we're asked to do is to help with running across borders. Get some shoes out to those that could probably benefit a bit more than we would from old and once loved but probably less loved trainers now. So we're looking to build a shoeometer, to take at least 500 pairs of shoes out. We've had 150 pairs donated by Mel already. And for everyone that would like to give us a pair of your old trainers that are in relatively okay condition, you'll get £10 of voucher off a new pair of shoes at Footworks. So on that topic, what better way to spend that than in a new pair of Lunas?
I couldn't agree with you more.
I've had 3 pairs that I've handed in, so I could probably get 3 pairs of Lunas, £10 off each. Superb. But everyone will know Ted. I guess a great number of people in the shop will have read Born to Run and will know who the real star of the show is. There's no doubt about that. You know? So I think that...
Who are you referring to? Sorry, never mind.
So it'll be great to meet the legend himself. It'll be great to hear stories from all over the world, not only North America, but you know, lessons from Mexico, lessons from all over the world, and also hear a wee bit about the development of the Luna sandal and things such as that. So without further ado, I'll let you on with the main show. I give you Ted.
Well, I thought he must be referring to somebody else, but now that it's me, I've got a lot to live up to. So, thank you so much for coming here this evening. It's a great honor to be able to have a group of people around wondering what is going to come out of my mouth. Even I don't know. One thing I can say, an incredible inspiration for hundreds and thousands, and I guess even millions of people all over the world. And in many ways, that book really becomes a tool to what I believe do something that's very important for human beings, and that is remind them clearly and eloquently that we are not born broken. We are not broken by default. There is something marvelous and incredible about the human person, the human body, the ancient technology we embody in its default state. And making the assumption that it's broken by default is a great way to sell things, but a bad way to start out the story of what it means to be human. I think the book Born to Run, and indeed all of our personal self-experimentations in being human, are really about reminding ourselves that human beings are awesome when they simply are given an opportunity to test out, to play around with the equipment in its default state. So, in my own experimentations with trying to solve the riddle of running for me, because I had this crazy idea that I was going to, before I turned 40, try to run a marathon. Now, many of you from the book Born to Run know that I wasn't having a good experience leading up to trying to solve this problem for myself. I was following all the things that you should do in order to do that. In other words, I was getting the advice at the running shops. I was getting some of the better shoes at the time, and I was really coming to the conclusion the way running felt for me is after an hour of training, I felt so beat up and so like as if I just couldn't take any more, yet I still had plenty of energy. It was a really weird, I don't know if you've had that experience, but it's like you're beating yourself up. You got energy, but you can't go anymore. You can't deal with the pain anymore. And I was just thinking, damn, those marathon runners must be so capable of just divorcing the pain out of their mind and just going, soldiering on. And I figured, well, there's probably got to be some modern technology out there that's going to help me solve this riddle. So I got on Google and I looked and I found, many of you know this story, I found these things called Kango jumps. And it was like, yes, the answer is here. Mankind has solved the riddle. And so they were from Switzerland. I ordered them, and I was, you know when you order stuff online or whatever and you gotta wait for it and you're just like imagining how wonderful it's gonna be. And I'm just imagining, because you know these Kango jumps were gonna come, and I was imagining just what it was gonna be like. I was like playing over and over again in my mind how I was gonna put them on. And certainly, you know, 1 hour in the best running shoes at the time with these new, most impact-resisting footwear ever designed in the history of the world. Certainly 2 hours out of the box, no doubt about it. And I was going to become the living embodiment of Tigger. And I knew it, you know. And I'm going to get into, there's some aspect of my personality and my culture that perfectly placed me to be in a position, even to this very day, to be willing to push the envelope of what's possible in my own body and sort of go out there on a limb and see what might happen. I'm not one of those kind of people, and many, you know, some of us are just those kind of people, we just got to figure it out on our own, even if we go completely wrong. Now, the Kango jumps came, and my moment in history was about to be made, because this was a new model, this was their newest version. I was getting one of the, you know, it was just like, yes! Got them on, and indeed, you know, you could literally bounce like you're on a trampoline in these things, right? And instead of 2 hours, 15 minutes later, I was feeling the same kind of jarred feeling that I'd been feeling after 1 hour in the better and it was just like, you know, I turned the dial to 11 and 11 didn't work. You know, if you've seen Spinal Tap, I was completely crestfallen. I had wasted all this money. Thankfully, I busted them, and I had to send them back and got my money back. That's another story. But nonetheless, I had to really reevaluate what the hell was wrong here. I went and found what I thought was the highest technology possible to deal with what I thought the problem was, i.e. impact in my body, and it didn't work. Why? And that why was a riddle that I was going to do whatever it took to solve, and I was about ready to give up at this point, though. It was like really a moment of despair. Now, the good news is, and this is a really important point, an important part of what made Barefoot Ted possible, let's say. And that is, I grew up in Southern California. Southern California is surf and skateboard culture. I grew up in the early 70s when skateboarding started, really started becoming a craze. And in the day when I started riding skateboards had clay wheels still. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. Anybody know what a clay wheel is? We got two. Okay. Before urethane wheels, and I was there the day that change went over, we had wheels that were literally made out of clay. And I guess it'd be ceramics. We called them clay wheels. And it was a rather uncomfortable ride. It was quite vibratory. And unless you rode on baby butt smooth concrete, you really were getting quite a bit of, that zzz feeling. Nonetheless, all skateboarders skateboarded barefoot. That was perfectly natural. And indeed, surfing, of course, you do barefoot. Of course, so many of the sports that were happening in Southern California were barefoot-oriented sports. As a matter of fact, from kindergarten all the way through middle school, the one brand I wore of all my shirts was something called Hang 10. Anybody have heard of Hang 10? Okay, Hang 10 on every shirt I owned, and it was like a mandatory from of all the things that two golden feet embroidered on the chest. So barefooting was just simply part of my culture. When my aunt had a record in high school that held for nearly 2 decades running barefoot. Somewhere in the mid-60s, sporting goods associations lobbied to get it so that high school sports had to wear shoes. So before '64, entire cross-country teams would be barefoot. I mean, that whole era, before the modern shoe, barefooting was not obscure or unusual, and indeed, footwear itself was all what we would call minimalist, right? So my culture had me perfectly poised and prepared to be able to not automatically assume that my foot was incapable of doing something as incredible as what we can do with our own feet now. So here I am doing some research on the study of, I got kind of intrigued. Is it possible to run barefoot? So I was doing a little bit of research on Google, and bam, I find Barefoot Ken Bob's website. Now here you have an obscure kind of hippie dude, long hair, little bit outside mainstream, but he's doing something quite remarkable, and it kind of intrigues me because at first I just thought he must be, a little bit off. But as I started researching and following every single link on this website that he had, back in 2003, if you would have taken the time, you could have basically you could have written a book, Born to Run. It was all there. The stuff was there. There just was, and this is a really interesting thing, there was no product. There was no, in other words, barefooting's great. Barefoot is free. But how in the hell do you sell free? How do you even talk about it? So when they would talk with Barefoot Ken Bob, it's an eccentric, bizarre kind of thing that this guy would do. It's more like a stunt. It wasn't anything about this might be the way you might want to run. No, it was just this guy was, but I started taking a look and recognizing, okay, he's running many marathons, he's obviously not injured, and there's something to this. So I spent 3 days reading every single thing on his website. And indeed, on there were links to studies. There were interesting studies on showing footwear, and the more expensive footwear was leading to more injuries, for example, on one. And then there was some stuff on human evolution and how we're perfectly designed to run long distances. And there was some stuff with the coach over at Stanford who was starting to get his students to run barefooted and seeing some benefits there. There was just a lot of little leads. And then there was this idea about why a heel strike might not be the ideal. And then there was Barefoot Ken Bob's own philosophy, which was he was talking this ball, heel, ball strike, and this quicker cadence. Okay, 3 days of reading every single link, every single testimonial, every single race report, and I thought, okay, I'm going to give this a try. Now, back to an important factoid to keep in mind. Barefoot Ted, as you now know me, was not somebody who literally had been wearing supportive, orthotic, arch-supporting, narrow-toed shoes his entire life. He'd been barefoot huge periods of his life, and so I like to think of barefooting as a language, okay? Every single human being, every one of us in this room right here, by virtue of being a human being, has the capacity generally to learn another language, particularly the one you've already learned. But even if all of us were right now, were transported to a small village somewhere in Africa that spoke a language we've never heard, used a script we've never seen, if each one of us applied ourselves, in 1 year we'd all be able to talk about numbers and days, body parts and food, sky and sun and moon and whatever. We'd get some, even in our harder wired brains now, we could make some progress to learning another language that we'd never heard or seen before. Well, barefooting is much more fundamental than language. In other words, one of the defining characteristics of a human being is the ability to move on 2 legs on the planet and indeed trot or run in a way that no other animal can do as well as and as efficiently as we can. So that's our fundamental capacity. Being disconnected from it, back to the idea of it being a language, what if one of us had been in that village and spent the first 10 years of their life